Hello, Karen here, Soul Symbols, Astrology and Tarot, and I'm here to do a bit of a forecast for this lunar eclipse in Pisces, which is coming to us on the 7th of September. So I'll get rid of that. Here it is on the screen. Sun in Virgo, Moon in Pisces, okay? And it is near the nodal points. So the Moon is 3 degrees off the north node and the sun 3 degrees off the south node. Okay, so it's a total lunar eclipse. But this is part of a story. It is the fruition of the Virgo new moon, which happened a few weeks ago, and happened at 0 degrees of Virgo. We have this full moon, which I say is a fruition. It's a full-term pregnancy. We want to look at the seeds that were planted at 0 degrees. Okay, and then we'll have another lunar eclipse, which will be at 29 degrees of Virgo, the anaretic degree of Virgo. And not only is it the last degree of Virgo, but it is the last eclipse in a series of eclipses. I'm just going to have a look. I'll show you the book. Okay, so it's called Metonic Cycle Groups of Eclipses. Now, this eclipse is the final eclipse of a series that started on the 22nd of September 1968. So it's kind of the end of a generational series. And if you were born in the 60s, you know, this has been a lifelong cycle for you. Or anything after, but those particularly born 1968, it may have a huge impact on you, that last solar eclipse. I will do another video on that, so I'm not going to go too deeply in. I'm going to try and stay focused on this particular one. So what have we got going on here? Well, as I said, there's a backdrop story, a background story to this. We had on the 29th of August, we had Pluto here go what's called out of bounds, which is to do with its declination. Okay, now when all that we need to know really is that when Pluto is out of bounds, it's untethered from the sun. It's unchained, okay, so it can bring about its significations with no problems. And that will stay like that, I think, until November. I haven't written the dates down here, but it's around November time. We then had on the 1st of September, we had Saturn move into Pisces. So this is going to be a note of this eclipse that we do have Pisces that we can add to the meaning, okay? So that is the historic of it. We will have Neptune joining Saturn in Pisces at some point, and also we'll have Uranus moving back into Taurus. They're both in retrograde motion. So is Pluto, but Pluto will not go out of Aquarius now. So we're going to be asking, what is going on, okay? So with this moon, the ruler of the moon is Jupiter, which is sitting in Cancer, which is the rulership of the moon. So there is a beautiful reception between Jupiter and the moon, and they're in a trine, which is a lovely flow and ease of energy, okay? So they're both supported there in each other's signs. And then the ruler of the sun, we have Mercury. Now, this is the only time that Mercury will be in its rulership, Virgo, for this full moon, this lunar eclipse. At the new moon, it was still in Leo, and at the second solar eclipse, it will be in Libra. Okay, and at the moment it is strong Mercury, but it is combust the sun. It's 5 degrees away from the sun, but it will be reseeded at that point. I talked about this in my Virgo new moon video. It's attached above, so go and have a look at that. But we have quite a powerful sky at the moment. When we, oops, popped up again. When we are looking at this full moon, we're looking, this lunar eclipse, we are looking at a full moon with attitude, really. It's going to give you a times 3, times 4 hit of a full moon, but it will be revealing. It will reveal things to you, but it's also about this axis, the Pisces Virgo axis. So it's about finding the essence of each of those, and then finding that kind of harmony, that middle ground. So Pisces we have ruled with Jupiter, and Jupiter is always trying to, here's Jupiter. Jupiter, it seems to always be trying to bring lots of different things together into a coherent whole. That's very Jupiterian. So it can be about, trying to bring harmony to my mind, my body, my emotions. How do I move with all of those things in a lovely balance and harmony? How do I bring all those things together? Jupiter with Pisces can also be that flow of time, that sense of time being fast, time being slow, passing quickly or dragging. It can be to do with, trying to have that harmonized whole, to be in flow, even when we have time constrictions. So there are avoidance traits. We can be avoidant with Pisces, Jupiter and Pisces. Jupiter is very optimistic, gregarious, but we can also have that sense of overinflation, either our egos or our waistline. Okay, it can be both of those things. So we have, there can be an arrogance attached to it. So we have that sense of expansion, of trying to bring different things together, whether it's our time, our creativity, our mind, our bodies, our jobs, trying to bring things into, unify things into a harmonious whole. And then we have Virgo with Mercury, which does the very opposite. Mercury tends to break things down into bite-sized pieces. It analyzes the facts. It reminds me of science when it's looking at the whole thing and then it's breaking it down into tiny pieces, compartmentalizing things to get to the bottom of the facts. What is this? So you could look at Jupiter as the macrocosm and Mercury as the microcosm in that way, Jupiter would approach science as looking at the whole body, whereas Mercury would be looking at the cells of the body. It's that kind of energy, okay, that you're working with. What is so good about this is we can work with both that breaking down of things and that Virgo energy of Virgo's to do with the virgin purity. It's about the harvest and judgment because it's just before autumn equinox when the dark is increasing. So, those aspects of the critical nature of Virgo or the judgmental nature of Virgo is about our souls. Really, it's about us going down to Hades and that sense of, are we prepared to depart this world? Have we been all we can be? So it's looking at our souls in that sense. And what is wonderful, whilst Pisces can keep us on the dream, and can sometimes be very illusory, and Virgo is kind of grounded us. It's an earth sign, whereas Pisces is water. So we're flowing with the water on our back in the sunshine, or it could be in a storm as well. And Virgo is like, I'm earth, I want to ground, I want to have that realism. And there are things about Virgo and Pisces that kind of grind because they're in opposition, because of Mercury and Jupiter and their natures, because of Virgo and Pisces. But we do have things, like service is connected to both Pisces and to Virgo. And, you know, in Pisces, it will be service in the realm of consciousness, soul or spirit. It will be that kind of spiritual ebb and flow. Whereas Virgo will be service in the material realm. But those two things, although they seem different, they can be harnessed and brought together. It's about the embodiment. We can embody that. We can bring that service into a material form, which really supports other people's spirituality, their soul development, their conscious awareness. So yeah, you can marry those two. And with Virgo, I talked about the harvest and judgment. You know, there's that sense that it's operating in a sense of preparedness, whereas Pisces will operate on faith. So Pisces will be, oh, it'll all be okay. And, you know, that can be lovely having that sense of faith. But if we're going to have that sense of faith about our money, perhaps, you know, if this is happening, Pisces is in your second house for those Aquarius risings. If you're going to have that sense of, oh, I've got faith with my money and my resources, but there's no preparations made for, say, a holiday next year or a retirement or enough money put aside so you can have some time to yourself to cultivate yourself, that's no good. And also, if we're in that Virgo energy and we are constantly prepared down to the fine detail, I often see Virgo as that list making energy, you know, where you're preparing for every single opportunity. And this can bring that energy of anxiety where we can prepare ourselves to death, literally. So there's that bringing that balance between the two. Um, Virgo would tend to have a plan and Pisces a dream. But then if our dreams are not planned out, our visions require to-do lists, okay? Otherwise, they just stay. Pisces has that energy of illusion, you know, being deluded, illusion, escapism. So that groundedness of Virgo can bring that embodiment. And this is a lunar eclipse. So we're talking the moon, which is embodiment. It is the archetype of embodiment, self-discipline to bring anything into form. Okay, if we've got a creative idea, a creative vision, and we want to bring it into form, we need self-discipline. We need the details. If I'm going to do a painting, I often stumble over this. I am a Pisces. I do stumble over this, but like I'll have this amazing idea of what I'm going to do, but then I've got to think of the practicalities and have the self-discipline to buy the canvas, the paints, you know, get all my equipment together, do the composition, do my measurements. Okay, so that's more Virgoan. So they have self-discipline, whereas Pisces can be self-deluding. Take it from me, you can be self-deluding. Okay, but again, that there's that sense of having that balance and that ability to merge them, using that Jupiter energy to merge the pair of them. Okay, so you can go with the flow, but there's also that, you know, that's Pisces, but you need to know what flow you're going with. Like Virgo will critical think, whilst Pisces will think big. Okay, both are needed. Thinking big can bring illusion. So that seeking of inspiration, that Byron part of us for our creativity, whatever we're creating, whether it's a project, it's something at work, it's a home we're creating, whatever we're creating, that inspiration for it. You know, we need information, which is very mercurial. So there's needing that information. Oh, excuse me. So there's all these what could be seen as tensions, and they can be tensions because the shadows of each sign can bring can bring those tensions. So when we have tension, you know, if we have got this inspiration, this big dream, you know, and we're like resisting collecting the information. How are you going to fund it? What time management do you need? All that. You need that energy, that mercurial energy, that gathering of facts. So I hope that is kind of gives you a flavour of that access. So at this full moon, we're at full term pregnancy with whatever we started at the beginning at the new moon in Virgo. Okay, we've bloomed. We're seeing something emerge, hopefully. Okay, and it will be in triplicate. Okay, it will be big, it will be noticeable wherever that full moon is landing, wherever Pisces is in your chart, and you'll be affected by whatever planets you have there. I'm giving a broad view. What do I do? Right. So Jupiter has been on the mountaintop. The Pisces people have stood on the mountaintop. They've seen the whole city, and they've looked at the shape of the city and thought, oh, there's a bit more land there. I can add another huge condo there. Or I can add some farmland there. It's that over eagle eyes looking down on what you're doing. So it's that big vision of what's going on. And then at the same time, Mercury has, when he seeded, when this new moon was seeded, we were down in the town. Mercury would have been in the marketplace, having a look who he could network with, communicate with, who could help him and to build these big condos or dig the farmland out. Who can he hire the bulldozers from? So it's that sort of energy. But if we were stuck in the details and we were mapping the whole city on foot from the bottom, we may have made mistakes because we didn't see the whole layout of the town. And that can be our projects. And we may find, as the pregnancy shows, as the project has been fleshed out, that there's adjustments that's needed, and vice versa. If we stayed on the mountaintop looking down, we may still be on the mountaintop dreaming, and basically bugger all has been produced. So these are the questions we need to be asking ourselves at this full moon, if we're to take it to the harvest, which is Libra. It's the balancing, it's the bringing of the two things together, finding that harmony between those two extremities, those two polarities. Where do we need to find more information? Where do we need more detail? Do we need to go out and buy stuff? Do we need to go and hire people? Do we need to network with people in order to get our work out there? I'm using these analogies. You can apply it to anywhere. Do you need babysitters so that you can go out and do some things that you desire to do for yourself? You can apply it how it fits, okay? But not much has been produced because we're still in our inspired, dreamlike mountaintop. We need to get those details together, or we need to broaden our vision. There may have been things that have come in that are additional to what we started with, but this is the time to look at where you're at in terms of whatever you've been doing. And it doesn't have to be on a grand scale. This can be small things, depending where your house is, depending what house this full moon eclipse is happening in, will be dependent on the themes and topics. So I hope that gives you some sort of overview of what the Virgo and Pisces is about, that access and the kind of tensions and things that you may be needing to look at this full moon eclipse. We need to keep in mind that this will wind up and then there will be a new moon in Virgo. So there's a real sense of between now and the 2 weeks, I think it's the 21st is the second new moon of Virgo, and it is a solar eclipse, so it's a massive new beginning. It's like ka-chung. So there may be that wrapping up, and I talked about that long metonic cycle, which started in 1968. So it can be a huge chapter wrapping up. We've also got the shorter cycle, which started, let me have a quick look. This full moon is the culmination of the new moon in Virgo, which was the 10th of March 2024, with the first quarter where there might have been some difficulty on the 8th of December 2024. And the conclusion to this series of moons in Pisces is the 8th of June 2026. I'll get the dates up, okay? So the beginning of this full moon, the Pisces series, which come every 9 months, is the 10th of March 2024. So have a look back to there. What were you seeding in terms of Pisces energies? What were you doing then? That first quarter of that came on the 8th of December 2024. And this is the full illumination of it. Okay. So you can look long term for that. And if you're just looking at this cycle plays out for 6 months. Okay. So look 6 months ahead, and you'll have, you'll be working on whatever what's come to fruition now. The other thing that I wanted to look at was the Sabian symbol for 16 degrees Pisces, because we always go, just get my notes, we always go a degree ahead with the Sabian symbol, okay? So it says, in the quiet of his study, a creative individual experiences a flow of inspiration. So it's reliance upon one's inner source of inspiration or guidance. But what this is saying is that although we have our inner sense of inspiration and guidance, we are part of a collective, and Pisces is very much of the collective energy. You can have a look at it, you can view it as the collective consciousness. We're drawing from that, and whether it's societal, familial influences when we were growing up, our culture, our religion, whatever was put into us, that can be your little software program that runs in the background that you're unaware of. And I spoke about Pluto in the sense that Pluto is not aspected in this full moon in Pisces, but it is in our sky and it's untethered, and we can draw on that. Very much about the unconscious is Pluto, and about the power dynamics, and it's about transformation, rebirth. So we're talking about beginnings and endings and closures of cycles in Virgo with this full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. So yeah, it talks here about the collective, and that our inspiration can often be the byproduct of a familial, societal, and cultural patterning. So we do need to be looking at that, and hence why I've been talking. It's about subjective strength. So it's our subjective strength, but it's about a knowing that inspiration can come from all different patternings that we've had. So we are drawing on that collective consciousness in that way. So it's knowing that our individuation, our sense of uniqueness, is emerging from a melting pot of the collective. We are, and our inspiration is that byproduct, as I said, of familial, societal, and cultural pattern. So that axis of Pisces and Virgo, it'll enable us to either push with or push against the tide of collective influences. And some of us may need to push against those collective influences, and some of us may need to swim with it. Okay. But we do that to find our subjective strength, our own unique pattern, and to plug into flow with that collective tide as a unique individual with our own gifts and talents. So there can be a resistance to either that downward pull into the soul, that platonic energy of rebirth, or we can resist that upward pull. And just echo the status quo there. So, yeah, Pluto is that archetype of individuation, and he'll bring out his unique flavour to the table without the constraints of his collective being amongst the planets, okay, because he's out of bounds. So he's going to be administering that process of breakdown, destruction, and creation in the universe. His impulses towards regeneration, transformation, purification, and purging. They're evolutionary forces, and we might experience within ourselves or externally, others brutal, ruthless behaviors, driving obsessive energies. We may have that, we may be driven. We're talking about Virgo, the Virgo energy of having to plan everything. We may get obsessive with that. Let's be open to that. Let's be open to becoming aware of that. They can be unconscious patterns, is what I'm trying to say. But Pluto's going to bring that opportunity of rebirth. And the reason I'm bringing Pluto into this is, as I said a little while ago, is that sense that this is a Virgo, 2 eclipses, 2 new moons. It's powerful energy. So if we can look at those tensions, those flip sides, those polarities, and find that rebirth into a kind of harmony of the both of them that can make us more productive, help us in our co-creation. Okay, bring a closure to old structures that maybe we've unconsciously been spurred on doing. We've been spurred on to just repeat those patterns. This is a time where we can break free of that. This full moon eclipse, this lunar eclipse, is going to give us an opportunity to compost the things that hold us fixed in the status quo. Either we feel we need to go with the group, that group thing, or where it's an unconscious pattern that can come to fruition and come out from the underworld, so to speak. Or it can be our judgment of self and others, our inner critics that can be stilled at this juncture. But we need to tap in and be aware that those Plutonian energies are about that we can work with, and we can work towards that Libra equinox of balance. That's the balance of light and dark. That's outside and within us. So we can harvest and kind of immortalize those things we value in ourselves and others. We can make that our new pattern, our new way of operating. Okay. And of course, as we go into, Mabon, equinox, autumn equinox, and that balance, we've got that energy of Libra, the Ma'at, balance in the heart against the feathers. So we've got an opportunity to finish off things that are going to give us a light conscious, a light heart, that we've done all we can do. We can never be perfect. I don't believe in perfection. I think it would be very boring if we were all the perfect, polished, finished item. Be no spice in life if we were all like that. So trust the flow of this energy as you work, whatever you're working in, whether you're working, supporting your children in a job, out in the world somewhere, or a hobby, a project, or working on your finances, your home, whatever it is, get into that flow, trust that flow, know the details though. Yeah, know the details. It's the vision of Jupiter Pisces and the detailed service of Mercury Virgo, but difficult when they're detached from one another. So you'll either get dry routine or you'll get illusional dream. So it's asking ourselves those questions. Am I in this dry rat race, Groundhog Day energy, ticking off all my list? Or am I in some kind of like head in the clouds, illusional dream and nothing's actually happening? We need to be off. And they need each other in order to create form, okay? We've got our imagination, our thoughts, that Piscean oneness, oceanic, but that needs to come down through us with those details. And it creates form. We embody it, we make it real. Every single item we have was a dream in someone's head, and they condensed it, got the details, got all the materials they needed, and they created it. But it starts off as visionary, okay? And we need the details and the vision to have that form. We've also got this Saturn in Pisces. So Saturn likes to dig foundations, bring limitation. But again, he brings wisdom of how we can form these things. So he will be supporting in this full moon. He's going back into Pisces to review, redo. He was in there from March 2023 and came into Aries, I think, in May. So we had all that time. So what was going on there? What was Saturn building for you? What foundations were being dug? And it can often be where we feel constricted or pushed to be disciplined or restrained in some way. But what have we learned? What were we doing? Because he's going back in Pisces to mop up and close out. Again, this overall feeling that I have for this full moon is the harvest, and then the fruition, the full pregnancy of what's been going on in all those various cycles, and how are we going to move forward? Yeah, we need to be looking at that. So Saturn will bring that form made in the devotion and service of Virgo via realism, discipline, and the knowledge of limitations, be they your skills or your resources. Okay. If your desires are spiritual, for individuation, soul descent, healing, service to others, you'll require we require the discipline of spiritual practice, the understanding and application of your craft, all those details, the time to devote to learning, growing, dealing with blockages and shadows in order to bring into form changes to our characters, our actions, the purification of motives, ambition and desire. So that power lies within the knowledge of the essence of the energies you're working with, both the light and the dark, whether it be a business endeavor or a spiritual goal. Then we do have this question, that collectively at the moment, I feel, it's just my point of view, that we are in a time of Jupiterian excess. And that's consumption, war, the breaking of international law. Jupiter's the law, represents the law. Then we got the ideological and religious fanaticism, and we're also in that time, that kind of expansive, delusional Pisces energy, but we're also in a time of analytical reductionism, the Mercury, the Virgo, of division, of scientific materialism, of dogmatism. So it's a time, we are at that time for the balancing of the scales. The devil's in the details, so the saying goes. All we can do as individuals to change and to bring balance of light and dark is to go within and ask ourselves the difficult questions. Where are we contributing to our collective dilemma? Where am I in excess? Where am I reducing either myself or others? Where's the shadow in me that contributes to the collective reality? We can't deny, we can't disengage ourselves. There's a collective consciousness that we're all part of. I'm not saying we're at fault for the wars but where I see things happening on a microcosm, if we're at war within ourselves, if our mind's split, if we are self-criticizing, judging, we're adding to that shadow, that sense of powerlessness, of um, loss of confidence, not being able to create what we're here to create and do what we're here to do. And if we're in conflict with friends, families, constantly, I'm not just talking, once a year, this constant conflict with others, then we're adding to that collective conflict. We're adding to the macrocosm. Okay. And war is just a family argument gone mad, in excess, like that Jupiterian excess. So yeah, there's questions, looking at our shadow, looking at what we're projecting on the collective backdrop. Um, we can also think about, is there an inflation of ego that requires a reduction of others? These are tough questions, but if we want to grow, they're questions we have to ask. They're not nice and it's difficult, but we can face our shadow. And actually, within that shadow, we find some beautiful stuff. Some wonderful, our true selves, our soul, our sense of self. Um, and it's a tiny minority who are enlightened. I'm still not completely sure what that means personally, but yeah, it's a tiny majority. We're not all Buddhas or enlightened individuals. Okay. But we are individuals, part of the collective, and therefore our shadow is part of that collective shadow. Um, so if we deny it, we deny the treasures, the gifts, the liberation. These are the things that I think both Saturn is going to face us with and that Pluto is going to face us with, because we're going through a massive shift in terms collectively. Pluto in Aquarius is that death and rebirth to old structures and bringing in new structures. And it starts with us. Okay, we're being called to embodiment in this full moon, who we are. We're being called to wholeness or wholeness, balance, that sense of balance as far as we can. So those are my many and varied thoughts. I really hope that there's something in there that you can take hold of. They were wide and winding, but something you can take hold of and use during this lunar eclipse. Enjoy it. Know that it's gonna, I think, I've talked about a pregnant belly. So a full moon to me is like when that pregnancy is in its fullness. But I think this is like having triplets or quads. So what you've done will be enormous. It will just be enormous. You'll see it. You'll see that fruit grown, okay? And you'll know what to compost, what to keep in the coming weeks and months. Okay, then I should be back with tarot readings. I'll also be back with another forecast, most definitely for the new moon solar eclipse. I should bring something then, but there's lots going on in our sky that, I'll bring some other forecasts. Okay, then. I'll do my spiel. If you want a reading, astrology reading, go to www.soulsymbols.co.uk. Please like, subscribe, and comment. It helps the algorithm. Other people can then, take a look and decide whether they like my content. All right, then. Lots of love to you all. Bye bye.